Hola amigos, this is Mark. This is number 2 in a series of deep dive videos about my 2024 500 EXC build. In the first video I covered most of the front, and this I'll cover kind of the next, the midsection of the bike, I guess. A couple things that I forgot to mention, however, I will cover before we go any further, and I'll zoom in on this. One is brake cable management. With the tower, it has to be routed differently. It can't go up and over. So this is similar to what Takomoto does on some of their bikes. My approach is a little bit different. Goes up and around, attaches here. This, I actually have another crimp up in here, as this was a little bit longer with big covers here, but it goes up. And then this is an approach that I've taken on other bikes in the past. Rather than going up and around, this goes across right here. And so the flex is from here on down to right there. And that has worked very well for the last 8 years that I've been running that. And that is a fairly standard kind of old school rally technique. It then goes across. I use the Rad Garage guide here, and then up to the brake. And then I'm still playing around with exactly how the Speedo cable is going to work, but for right now it comes up close to the pivot and then in. Let's see, that's one thing I promised. I guess the other was, I took the sides off so you can see the fairing a little bit more, is the amount for the tablet. You can see it just uses a standard 1/2-inch rally crossbar. I've got a ram attached to that. That seems like that's the best approach. And then the ram guides that I'm using right now, these are 3D printed, especially to kind of fit the Alcatel model. And you can see I've gone through a bunch of them as we kind of play around with it. They work particularly well. They just use a very simple clamp system. It's pretty resilient 3D printing. Let's see, the guards, I had to cut them off a little bit, and so I just basically did that with a jigsaw bimetal blade, and then a little bit of belt sander on the edge, a little bit of extra, if you can see it, a little bit of extra graphics to try to get it to tie in a little bit more. One other point on the Rad Garage system, I integrated that with the BRP sub mount, and so in doing that, I ended up with some extra parts. I mean, frankly, enough for somebody to put a stabilizer on. This is the original tower clamp that has been replaced by the Rad Garage component, and then Rad Garage uses this riser and mount for the stabilizer. So because I'm using the BRP sub mount, soft setup, I don't need either one of these pieces. So that's kind of the superfluous stuff that came in trying to integrate these two packages. Okay, let's see. Moving on then, kind of moving to the center of the bike. This is the Service 3.9 or 4-gallon tank. I've plugged the cap here so that I can attempt to run some kind of a tank bag. This is the Takomoto vent that I just placed as close as I could in a nice flat area here. Run those on other tanks. They seem to work pretty well. On this side, not a lot to point out, I suppose. That I have a carbon fiber pipe guard. Didn't really want to put a carbon fiber pipe guard on. Again, I'm super light, super trick. I'm not a fan of them because you fall and then they look like crap. But the old style flatland racing kind of pipe guard that I've used on other bikes, they don't offer those for the newer bikes, so this is what I'm using. More shameless stealing from some of the Takomoto setups. You can see I have heat wrap on number of the pipes down in there, just to try to keep those rubber radiator pipes away from the actual exhaust. So then swinging around on the other side, engine area, couple things that you probably can't see up inside of here. I have the horn, again, tip I got from Takomoto videos. Done a fair amount of rerouting of some of the wires just to clean them up a little bit and be able to route them parallel to each other. Let's see, as part of that, I went with the Enduro Engineering slave cover. I really, really love this. I've used it on a bunch of bikes. Not only does it, does it have the metal bracing for the chain, it also does a super good job of enveloping the wire here so that wire coming off the stator is no place exposed. Did have to trim the service cover a little bit to get those two to work together. Let's see, stock pegs, stock shifter. I have always run stock pegs. I know that they're not the greatest in the world in terms of feel. I have never broken a stock peg. I have bent the crap out of them, but I have never broken one. And I've seen a lot of guys that have broken pegs when they hit them. So I'd rather just bend it than break it. And that's kind of same philosophy on the lever. I would rather bend it than have it go into the case. And frankly, this is what has punched more holes in cases than anything I've ever seen. So we'll see if the plastic guard is really resilient enough to be able to satisfy that kind of cover. Let's see what else. Golan filter, 10 micron Golan filter going up underneath the tank. Let's see. I'll talk about the rack in the next video, but you can see I've got the Moscow Moto mounts here that came with the rack. Another thing that I'm playing around with is the kickstand. I have never been a fan of KTM kickstands, although I'm told this one is better, but honestly, the only kickstand that I've ever really, really liked and thought was resilient was the Pro Moto Billet that has the integrated spring and the big box assembly out here. I have run that on my 2016 bike with a lot of camping where you got tons of gear and it's hard to swing a leg over it. And you're putting a lot of weight on that kickstand. A lot of the time, that thing is just held up and it is never bent. It is never broken. It just keeps on taking a licking. And I've seen so many of these single-sided backed pivots breaking. And maybe this is different. Maybe the KTM one will be a little bit different this time around. Let's see. I do have a Dirt Tricks dome washer that's going to go in there. I'm playing around with the gearing, the stock gearing on the 24s. What I have on here is stock, for me anyway, as it was given to me, is 1448, I believe. And the newer bikes have a lower 5th and 6th gear. So I'm trying to figure out what's an appropriate gearing to make me be able to run on the highway on the occasions that I need to do that. And so for my 2016 bike, that is 1550, which gives me range well up in the 75, 80 miles an hour. This right now, I'm calculating will not give me that. So I'm either going to go with a 15 in the front or drop down to a 45 in the back. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the changes that had to be made for that. And I think, does that kind of cover, I guess that kind of covers the center of the bike. And so we'll leave it at that, and we'll do a third video on the back and talk about the rack and some of the other stuff.